Good evening, everybody. The presence of fools in the White House has led to what we talked about yesterday, to Signalgate. The entire infamous story about journalists being added to a secret chat and the absolutely insane situation where top secret meeting planning an attack on the Yemeni Houthis was conducted through the Signal Messenger. We talked about this yesterday, but now there is a follow-up initiated entirely by the White House itself. What happened? The Atlantic, the very publication whose editor-in-chief was behind the initial expose, has published yet another article, this time with even more detailed screenshots from the Signal chat. These screenshots include a message from US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, sent half an hour before American military planes took off. The message contains specific details about the planned attacks on Houthi positions in Yemen, including the exact timing and weapons to be used. F-18 fighter jets, drones, and Tomahawk missiles. Why did the Atlantic editor-in-chief decided to continue the expose? Because Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Gabbard, CIA Director Radcliffe, and Trump all started claiming that the Atlantic and its editor were lying about the contents of the Signal messages. Now, let's be clear, it was truly embarrassing and a scandalous situation. But if there were responsible people in the White House instead of fools, the simplest and most rational response would have been to acknowledge that a serious leak and mistake has occurred, and even if they didn't want to fire anyone, they could have at least said, yes, it was an unfortunate incident and we are taking measures so it won't happen again. Instead, the US Secretary of Defense, Director of National Intelligence, CIA Director, and President of the United States himself launched an attack on the journalist, accusing him of lying. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary stated that there was no classified information in the chat. However, she also said that she opposed the publication because the chat contained sensitive information. What's the difference between classified and sensitive? Only she seems to know. Instead, the journalist naturally responded, if there was no classified information, do you object to publishing more details? The response, no, it's not classified but it is sensitive. Well, since they had already accused the journalist of lying, he decided to publish even more details, especially since the attack had already taken place and there was no longer any risk to the pilots, meaning there was no real harm in making the information public. And also this press secretary, Caroline Levitt, she said that the entire story is yet another hoax invented by a known Trump hater, famous for his sensational claims. So what was the hoax? The journalist published the content of a chat that he was inexplicably added to. Where is the lie? The response is a textbook case of incompetence, when instead of handling the situation with dignity, acknowledging the mistake and taking measures, they escalate the scandal and make it even worse. For example, when asked about the Atlantic's new article, Donald Trump went straight to personal attacks. He called the publication about the chat a witch hunt, referred to the Atlantic as a failing magazine, and called Jeffrey Goldberg a truly disgusting person. This is the classic behavior of people who have no idea what they are doing. Instead of containing the damage, they are making things worse for themselves. They are dumping a bucket of garbage on their own heads and then banging on it like a drum. It's a spectacular display of incompetence, proving that nearly everyone in the White House is unfit for their jobs. Now, one could say, well, that's America's problem. They elected these fools, and so let them deal with that. But the real issue is that these people are shaping global policy based on their completely false perception of reality. We are so focused on these ceasefire negotiations that we are missing the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that Trump foreign policy isn't just a collection of random moves. It follows a broader strategy. Trump is essentially trying to replicate the Nixon-Kissinger model of 1972, except in reverse. Back then, Kissinger used China against the Soviet Union. Now Trump is trying to use Russia against China, hoping to break Russia away from China and either turn it into an ally against Beijing or at least keep it neutral. This plan is doomed to fail because Russia and China have extremely strong ties. It is difficult to understate just how critical Beijing's support is for Moscow. Unlike the Nixon era, Russia today cannot be pried away from China. The two countries are strategic partners. Back then, Nixon and Kissinger's policy worked because China saw the USSR as a bigger threat. But today, trying to use the same strategy in reverse is utterly impossible. This entire idea is based on a complete misunderstanding of Russia, its relationship with China, and how modern geopolitics actually work. But Trump is convinced that he must end the Russia-Ukraine war as soon as possible at any cost, not because he cares about Ukraine, but because he wants to focus all his energy on China. He has no interest in Europe. He has no interest in Ukraine. His only goal is to cut a deal with Putin, recognize Ukraine as part of Russia's sphere of influence, and focus on US-China confrontation. Just like his special representative mistakenly believed that Ukraine's nuclear weapons originally belonged to Russia, Trump falsely believes that he can flip Russia into an American ally. Will he ever wake up to reality, or will his illusions remain unbreakable? Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Slava Ukraini!